Hello, wonderful people of the internet. It's been a little bit too long, I think, this time, but I think I'm still really settling in. It's going to take a while, man. But today, especially with the last week, I think I just wanted to jump in and share some of the ideas that I've seen and hear about what you guys think on this whole subject, because there's so much to talk about. So the subject that I would like to talk to you about today is the discussion that is happening on the internet about what we can do about discussing ideas between different between people who have different political views to you in a way that is constructive. Because what has been discussed, especially by I'm gonna name people as I go along. So the first video I want to point you towards is John's video on the Vlogbrothers, and he did a post-election video in which he basically talked about how it feels quite hard to actually have constructive discussions on the internet, because it's so easy just to create echo chambers, because we will always surround ourselves so easily, without even really thinking about it, with people who agree with us, who have similar views to us, and all that kind of thing. Which means that when we try and share why we think the way that we do or start a discussion, we often end up just sort of talking to people who are like us, and it's really hard to actually break through and find people from the other side, who think the same way. And part of that is because when you come from one side, especially this time around, it's been very, very polarised, which means that when you try and talk from one side, you may think that the other side is completely crazy. You don't understand where they're coming from at all. But what you've got to remember is the other side may think the same way about you. So how do we break down that barrier, and how can we do that? Now, to go on to the second video I would like to hear your thoughts on is Hannah Hart's video that she did as part of Pizzamas, which the Vlogbrothers are doing at the moment. By having many guests, because as you might have heard or not, Hank had a lovely little boy, so he's been on a break. But yes, loads of awesome guests on Pizzamas. So Hannah did a video about how wishful thinking isn't enough. Like, you can't just wish things were better, we've got to do more. But what she was saying is there are many people who know someone who voted for Trump, for example, and you could go and talk to them and see why they voted that way, and see if you can show them why you disagree so much, and see if you can make that change just on that level. Because if everyone who knew someone in their family who thought that way and talked to them about it, then maybe, just maybe, we'd be able to make a difference. But when I was thinking about this video, I feel like that does make a lot of assumptions, because it may not be safe to do so. You don't know how hard it is to have those discussions. I think sometimes, it's very easy to assume that it's just like any other awkward conversation, but it's so much harder. There are so many implications for people, and you can't just say it's going to be alright, because who knows. But at the same time, I think you know your situation best. You know if you can approach people and have that conversation. But often I think, as far as I understand, obviously everyone's situation is completely unique. You know how your relatives sit on these issues, you know how tightly they hold on to them, but I still think it's if you absolutely can, do try and talk to them, because I feel like the internet is quite a hard place for having meaningful discussions, because I feel like on the internet people can come in and be very emotional about their views, which makes it really, really hard to have a constructive discussion, because it means that everyone just gets really emotional, and you can't really talk, you can't talk relatively, because everyone's thinking personally and subjectively. But the other problem is the fact that when you talk to people who vote one way or another, sometimes you end up with two different, completely different sets of facts, which is why one group may think one way and the other group can think the complete opposite way. And that is a really big problem, I think, with the internet, is the fact that everyone can have such different views and not be able to do anything about it, in a sense that there's so many sources that how can you as one person actually tell them apart? How can you do that? And I think that's why people like the Vlog Brothers who make informative videos are so important to share because of the fact that they've done their research, they know how to do their research, and they're just there to show you, like, although obviously they have a side, because I think genuinely, I mean, obviously I'm coming from a person who would never vote for Donald Trump, so for me I can see that they wouldn't either, but I do love the fact that, especially with John's videos, he did literally just talk through the policies, and he wasn't necessarily, like, you know, it's not trying to take sides, it's trying to show you objectively why one person is the person you should vote for over the other. So I guess a question for you that I would like you to tell me about, if you have an opinion, is, can we break down these echo chambers that we have on the internet, or is that just inevitable? And the second thing I think is that is sort of a different side of this whole discussion that Garrett brought up in his video in response to this election, was talking about whether we can really properly respect Trump voters because of what they know that they have voted for. Or because I think, I mean, when I heard this first, I was like, well, perhaps they didn't, you know, they weren't fully aware of, you know, maybe they voted for him for one reason, but that doesn't necessarily mean they endorse every single reason. But as I was talking to my friend, I realised that even if you don't agree with everything that he stands for, you can say that when you're talking verbally. But when you say that, when you vote, you have given them the power to enact everything that they view as appropriate. If you try and sit there and say that you don't agree with it, but you've endorsed it with your vote, you know, I don't think you can necessarily separate those two. But, you know, is it possible to think that people who voted for Donald Trump didn't, you know, can be separated from what he stands for? Because I think that's what I'm struggling with. Like, how can you separate someone from what they voted for? Because evidently Trump has very clear-cut views that are very extreme. So even if you weren't voting for him for everything that he stands for, you still endorse that. So how can we understand Trump voters without just associating with the person that they voted for, because he is the one they voted for? So yeah, I feel like I don't know if I'm seeing this too one-sidedly. I would love to hear your thoughts. So yeah, I think those are 3 main videos I've seen that were very constructive, I think, and and empathetic. And I do think it's important that we work together to stand up for minorities in general, because God knows what's going to happen in the next 4 years or the next 2 years, because, you know, obviously things are going to be different somehow, like how much Trump manages to get through is going to be something we find out. But yeah, so I would love to hear your thoughts. Please do be respectful in the comments. I have no idea who's going to come here, but it would be really, really cool to hear what you guys think. So yeah, I apologise for my really long absence. I've been well. How have you been? Just tell me anything you'd like in the comments. There you are. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful time doing what you're doing, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.